Now let's turn our attention to one of the 7 swing states that will determine who could be sitting in the White House after the elections. North Carolina is a state where a win by Vice President Kamala Harris in November could open a crucial path to victory, but polls show the race is neck and neck. A Democratic presidential candidate hasn't won North Carolina since Obama way back in 2008. Now, if you are Trump or Harris, there's one voter group neither party can afford to ignore in North Carolina: Indian Americans, along with other Asian Americans as well. To tell us more about this, we're joined by Chavi Khanna Koneru. She is co-founder and executive director at North Carolina Asian Americans Together. It's a non-partisan group that is working to get people out there and vote. Chavi, thanks for your time this morning. Chavi, let's dive straight into this. There are roughly about 236,000 Asian Americans and Pan-Islander voters in North Carolina, a more than 50% increase from what was seen a little over a decade ago. Remind us how crucial this vote bank is for both candidates, given that Trump won North Carolina in the previous elections by just 74,000 votes.
Exactly. North Carolina is a battleground state because it's always been extremely close. And Asian Americans, Indian Americans, who are the largest percentage of the Asian Americans in North Carolina, have the ability to be the margin of victory in the state. The Asian American voter base has grown about 86% between 2010 and 2020. As you mentioned, the last presidential election was determined by less than 75,000 votes. And we know in these critical regions in the state, the Asian American, Indian American population is greater than the margin of victory. So if they were to turn out, they would have the ability to determine this election all on their own.
All right, Chavi, now the Harris campaign believes it can flip the state from the Republicans for the first time since 2008. As we've been talking about, Obama was the last presidential candidate to do that. What do Indian Americans, along with other Asian Americans, really want? Yes, many are perhaps upbeat about having a commander-in-chief with South Asian heritage, but that's not enough. They're going to want more. So what's really on top of mind for them?
Yeah, so an important thing to note is that of the South Asian voters in North Carolina, over half are registered as unaffiliated with either political party, which means they care more about the issues than they do about their party affiliation. They're not going to be voting along party lines. And what we've found is that the issues, yes, while there is a segment of the population that is very excited about Kamala Harris being half Indian, they're more excited about the prospect of the changes that could be made with a Democratic president. So the things that people are most interested in, concerned about, is the cost of living, education, immigration, healthcare. And these are the issues that we see top of mind for these voters. Another one that has come up for Asian American voters is reproductive rights. And we know post the Supreme Court U.S. Dobbs decision, this is something that a lot of communities have been speaking about. So we're looking for candidates who can speak to the issues that Indian Americans are most concerned with in this election.
Do you get any sense of which way they're leaning towards?
We've done some polling that has found that the Indian American population in North Carolina does tend to lean a little bit more Democrat. However, the important thing is that these voters really are up for grabs by either party, and neither party is doing enough to reach out to them.
All right, let's look at some of the controversies surrounding North Carolina at the moment. There's an important question that will crop up on the ballots when North Carolina votes on November 5th. It's to amend the state constitution to say that only U.S. citizens can vote. The law, as we know, already has such a provision. So why are Republicans wanting to see this added to the Constitution? What's the politics behind it, and how is it going to go down for first-time voters, especially for, say, Indian Americans?
Yeah, so unfortunately, this is part of a concerted attack on immigrant communities here in North Carolina. The demographics of the state have changed significantly, and there's a portion of the Republican Party that isn't eager to allow immigrant voices to be heard at the same level as other voices in the state. So as a executive director who is both serving an immigrant community as a lawyer myself, it is very problematic to change the North Carolina state constitution to say something that it already does. And the only purpose it would serve is to exasperate xenophobic rhetoric and incite discrimination and violence on immigrant communities. So the claims that ineligible voters are committing voter fraud are unfounded. There's been studies around this. There's safeguards in place already to ensure the sanctity of our elections. And so the purpose of this amendment is not to secure our elections, it is to further anti-immigrant sentiments. And in a state like North Carolina that is becoming more and more diverse, full of more immigrants who are contributing to the economy, it's very important for us to oppose this kind of amendment.
But how would that actually scare away first-time voters? Because to me, it seems like just a clause there to amend the Constitution. So why would that actually keep people away?
It's more so that it creates fear and a chilling effect because when you're changing something that already exists, it's
Right.
making people think, is this a problem? Is this something that we need to be worried about? And what happens is that newly naturalized citizens are often afraid to participate in the process. And in North Carolina, which has a lot of new immigrants, particularly from the Indian community, it is critical that all of these folks come out, have their voices heard at the voting box. And so it's important to not have any rules that might make them feel more fear or uncertainty about the process.
Right, Chavi, before you go, you are, of course, in North Carolina. Appreciate you joining us this morning. How are things with regards to the hurricane?
Winds and rain right now, but hopefully we'll be okay.
Right, thanks very much indeed, Chavi. Well, thankfully that line stayed on fine. We were worried that we might not be able to reach you because of the storm outages there in North Carolina and various other places that have been affected by the latest hurricane.